Hi everyone, this is Eagle News. I'm Ralph Cornell in Washington. It's Saturday, July 29th, 2023 here in the nation's capital. The week's recap begins with President Joe Biden signing an order transforming the way the U.S. military investigates sexual assault cases. Arlene Ocampo reports.
President Joe Biden signs an executive order that shifts power away from unit commanders to independent prosecutors when it concerns sexual assault cases in the military. The White House says the order puts the cap on years of pressure from victims' advocates to ensure better accountability within the ranks. This, despite resistance to change from the military top brass. Congress passed a law requiring the shift in 2021. The said law's implementation began Friday. With the president's signature, Biden transfers key decision-making powers from military commanders to independent military prosecutors in cases of sexual assault, domestic violence, and murder, among which is deciding whether or not to lodge charges of serious crimes. The White House calls it the most significant transformation of the military justice system since it was established in 1950. It ensures that cases will be fully independent from the chain of command. In Washington, D.C., Arlene Ocampo, Eagle News, we live in extraordinary times.
In observance of World Drowning Prevention Day this year, the World Health Organization is calling on countries and partners to make drowning prevention a global priority. Rossell Feria tells us more.
Drowning is a leading cause of death globally for children and young people. In 2019 alone, an estimated 236,000 people drowned worldwide. Over 90% of these drowning deaths occur in low and middle-income countries. These include kids under the age of 5 being at the highest risk. On World Drowning Prevention Day this year, WHO encourages investing in daycare for preschool-aged children and teaching basic swim skills to school-aged children. The Global Health Agency says these two measures could protect millions of lives. WHO says that by 2050, increased global investment in these two preventive steps could save the lives of over 774,000 children. It can also prevent close to 1 million non-fatal child drownings and avert severe and life-limiting injuries for 178,000 drowning victims. Rossell Feria, Washington, D.C., Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
In other news, 5 passengers have been injured after a train derailed in Toronto, Canada. Yolanda Espiras has the details.
A train in Toronto got derailed Monday night, sending 5 people to hospital with minor injuries. The derailment happened when the southbound train got separated from the rest of Line 3 Scarborough RT train near Kennedy and Ellesmere Roads. Approximately 45 passengers were aboard the train car, and they were tossed around inside the car, causing minor injuries. While the investigation as to the reason of the derailment is being conducted, the Scarborough RT line will be replaced with shuttle buses for the time being. The Scarborough RT line is set to be decommissioned and cease its operations on November 19 of this year. The SRT opened in 1985 and is considered 10 years past its designed life and suffers from overheating in the summer and interruptions in the winter. TTC CEO Rick Leary has released a statement apologizing to everyone impacted by the incident and reassures everyone that safety is their paramount concern. In Toronto, Ontario, Yolanda Espiras for Matanang Aguila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin III visits Papua New Guinea for a follow-up meeting with Prime Minister James Marape. The meeting is about the Defense Cooperation Agreement and the Shipwrighter Agreement between the two countries. Eco Orteleza Quinola tells us more.
The bilateral meeting continues to discuss the security of Papua New Guinea's sovereignty, as well as its commitment to protect a free and peaceful Indo-Pacific region. Papua New Guinea views the United States as a key partner in enhancing and diversifying trade and economic relations. Prime Minister James Marape is inviting the United States to pursue its interest in the region from a geopolitical and geostrategic context. He urges the United States to adjust its lens so that it can truly understand the needs of the region.
Eko Hortaleza Quinola, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Eagle News, we live in extraordinary times.
Extraordinary stories from ThomasILikness today. From July being the hottest month on record, to a sweating robot in Arizona, to an elephant transporting election supplies in Cambodia. These and more on Correspondent at Large.
And now news and commentary from around the globe. We're near the end of July. We've set a rather dubious record, the hottest month ever recorded. We've all heard about climate change, global warming, and now Antonio Guterres, he's the Secretary General of the United Nations. Well, Antonio is saying global warming is over. What's that? Did I hear that right, Mr. Secretary General?
The era of global warming has ended. The era of global boiling has arrived.
Not too many in the Northern Hemisphere will disagree with that. People on 3 continents, well, they're just baking in the heat. And Guterres says this can't go on.
The air is unbreathable, the heat is unbearable, and the level of fossil fuel profits and climate inaction is unacceptable.
He's right. Look at what's happening. You see the wildfires here on the screen. The blazes are burning everywhere. And it's more than just enduring a summer heat wave. It's the effects of constantly high temperatures. You know, the heat results in deaths, thousands of deaths. People with compromised health just can't take the extreme temperatures. It also affects our food supply, and in some countries, well, they're running out of drinking water because of drought. I won't go on. We've all heard about the impact of climate change. It's just recently we're seeing the effects close up. So, Mr. Guterres, your assessment.
Humanity has unleashed destruction. This must not inspire despair, but action. We can still stop the worst. But to do so, we must turn a year of burning heat into a year of burning ambition and accelerate climate action now.
Part of dealing with climate change is adapting to it. And that's what researchers in Arizona are studying. They're turning to a robot for how we can protect ourselves on this warming planet. Meet Andy, the sweating robot. He's the world's first outdoor thermal mannequin. He can breathe, he can shiver, and he can sweat. Climatologist Jennifer Vanos says they can study the effects of extreme temperatures on humans because Andy can be exposed to just unbearable conditions.
We would never purposely expose a human to those conditions where their core temperature would get that high.
Vanna says the study will help come up with ways to mitigate the heat and develop personal cooling strategies. From robots to autonomous flying machines now, a company in Belgium is taking the next step in medical transportation. What you see here is an unmanned passenger drone. It can be used to ferry medical personnel and supplies to where they are needed. In this test flight, the drone successfully delivered blood products 1 kilometer away. The 2-seater aircraft can stay aloft for about a half hour, and it can travel at speeds of up to 130 kilometers an hour. With the drone, life-saving tissues and material can be delivered quickly instead of being stuck in traffic on the ground. They would also be able to bring help to hard-to-reach places. Let's go old school now. No robots, no drones. In a small tropical country, how do you get election material to voting places in a remote region? Well, during an election earlier this month in Cambodia, they packed them on a pachyderm. This elephant is taking supplies to a polling station that is inaccessible by road. It was loaded up with ballot papers, ballot boxes, election ink, and all that other stuff that's needed for the vote. The destination in this case is a village that has just 173 voters. The elephant and his handlers had to cross a river. Then they trekked through the jungle and through the mud to reach the destination. See, it can all be done without robots, autonomous vehicles, and artificial intelligence. I'll be back in 7 days, and in the meantime, I wish you all peace, joy, and happiness in the ensuing week. ThomasILikness, Correspondent at Large, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
An updated policy guidance ensuring and strengthening the rights and protections guaranteed to children with disabilities and their families have been released to take effect immediately. This under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. Philip Toledo has the details.
The updated guidance addresses the IDEA's general supervision requirement, which requires states to monitor local education agencies and early intervention service providers. This to ensure children with disabilities and their families access their rights under the IDEA. The updated guidance will provide states with accessible and actionable information necessary to timely identify and correct noncompliance, help ensure the rights guaranteed under the IDEA to children with disabilities and their families are protected, and reaffirm expectations across states to help ensure consistent implementation of the IDEA. OSEP Director Valerie C. Williams says this guidance ensures that all school-age children, regardless of the nature or severity of their disability, can access free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. Williams says it ensures that infants and toddlers with disabilities and their families are able to access early intervention services to the maximum extent appropriate. Philip Toledo, Atlanta, Georgia, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
The World Health Organization says the extreme heat in the Northern Hemisphere is putting an increased strain on healthcare systems, and the organization warns those least able to cope are hit the hardest. ThomasILikness has the story on Down to Earth.
Millions of people on 3 continents north of the equator are baking in a sustained spell of dangerous heat. The high temperatures make pre-existing health conditions worse, particularly things like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and asthma. That means more visits to the doctor, or in more serious cases, more trips to the hospital. Most vulnerable fall into a number of categories: older people, infants and children, the poor, the homeless. For many of these people, the consequence of heat is fatal. World Health Organization Chief Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says the death toll from heat waves is in the tens of thousands.
The new study published this month estimates that more than 61,000 people died from heat-related causes in 35 European countries during last year's Northern Hemisphere summer.
High temperatures along with a lack of rain have sparked wildfires in dozens of regions. At least 40 people have died in those blazes, and the smoke-filled air that the fires produce contributes to even more health problems. Tedros also worries about people who have substandard living conditions.
We're also concerned about the impact of extreme weather on the health of people who are displaced or living in conflict-affected or vulnerable settings, where there is limited or no access to safe water and sanitation, lack of cooling, and shortage of medical supplies.
Tedros says countries have to develop hot weather action plans to reduce the impact of excessive heat on health. That means making people aware of the need to avoid strenuous activities during the hottest part of the day, finding a cool place indoors, and being aware of heat stroke or heat exhaustion. Climatologists tell us extreme weather is going to be with us for the foreseeable future. And perhaps now it's time for governments around the globe to start treating it like a public health problem. ThomasILikness, Eagle News. We live in extraordinary times.
Before we let you go, here's our photo of the week. This is La Grande Roue de Montréal lit up in green, white, and red. Thank you, Marjorie Quintos, for this beautiful shot. And happy 109th anniversary to the Iglesia Ni Cristo Church of Christ. Thank you all for joining us again. If there are stories or topics you want us to share with you, just comment below. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Eagle News Live. I'm Ralph Cornell. We live in extraordinary times. Stay happy and healthy, everyone.